Mikasa! Yeah, that's racist enough. Hello YouTube, I'm Darkest101 and welcome to AniMonth. Yep, we're bringing a new tradition to the show. All throughout the month of March, from this point onwards, we'll be reviewing and talking about everything anime. I don't care if it's anime based off a manga, games with an anime-esque style to it, or their own beast. If it looks like an anime, it counts. And really, do you need a reason to review anime when it looks this gorgeous? And today, we're going to kick off AniMonth with RWBY. That's spelt RWBY instead of RUBY. RUBY was a character in RWBY. Now, this is an odd one because RWBY isn't a traditional anime. It's actually a web series animated and released by Rooster Teeth. But if you're like me, you came across it by watching Death Battle. Either way, I ended up watching RWBY on Netflix, which is my preferred way to watch it, by the way, because they've cut it up so they're like full-length anime movies on Netflix, so you don't have to wait for the next video in the playlist to play. Now, I've said a few times in the comments I'm not one to review YouTube content, mainly because most of it can't be reviewed and it's also not something I'd really want to do. RWBY, on the other hand, is similar enough to a non-YouTube anime that I feel I can review it without compromising my own rules. It's not like I'm going to go out and start reviewing a British series after this or anything. We've had enough beating around the bush, it's time to kick off AniMonth with a bang. Before we start, only the first 2 volumes of RWBY are up on Netflix right now. However, I'm going to be reviewing RWBY Volume 1 today, simply because I feel confident enough that these are long enough to be counted as their own individual movies. I get that me just reviewing one volume might piss a few of you guys off, but I promise I'll get to the next volume of RWBY before AniMonth comes around again. Hopefully. From what I knew about RWBY before being asked to review it, I think that it's fair to describe it as solely to if every weapon also had to be a gun in some way, shape or form. Scythes, nunchucks, even fucking boxing gloves. Does anyone know how to enroll at this school? I need to know, this is my Hogwarts. The animation style, as you may have already noticed, isn't your traditional anime and looks more like something you'd maybe see in a video game or something like, I don't know, Appleseed? Appleseed is an anime, right? And while it is good, it's decently animated, it does look a little choppy here and there. Some motions won't look natural enough, the models won't move in just the right way, and sometimes they just fly rigid through the air. It doesn't completely detract from the viewing experience, and this is a web series, so maybe give them a little slack. Also, the white balance on some of these characters is fucking terrible. RWBY's bad enough because of how pale she is, so it makes it difficult to see her nose sometimes, but at least she's not totally white. And then Weiss had to go and take it to a whole new level with her hair and clothes. Guys, I'm not kidding here when I say that she actually hurts my eyes with how pale she is. It physically pains me to look at one of these characters. Do not ever take this girl sunbathing. Her midriff will fucking blind everyone on the beach. Or maybe she's not supposed to be that pale and the shading is just really bad. Either way, I feel like an asshole. Besides, when RWBY wants to show some ass being kicked, it will show ass being kicked. God fucking damn, the fight scenes are animated perfectly in this show, and set to some of the best music I've ever seen in an anime. Some of the moves that these guys pull off are fucking awesome, and they utilize their weapons in every capacity. Except maybe this guy. His weapons seem to be purely gun-based. I mean, but what are they supposed to be when they aren't guns? I get the feeling this is some subtle tribute to Death the Kid. However, I mean, as this is an anime movie that's been made out of a series of 12-minute episodes, I know this is a web series and I've got to cut them some slack, but fuck it. The pacing is fucking terrible. I'm sorry, I know that this is a series of 12-minute videos stuck together in a roughly 2-hour movie, but the pacing is just god fucking awful. I mean, plot points and character threads will be introduced and out of butt fuck nowhere, usually as some friendship is magic levels of childish lesson and character development, and it will be resolved nearly fucking instantly. This is a web series, I get it, but if you're going to introduce this conflict of a character, draw it out a little bit, make it interesting, flesh it the fuck out. It literally ends up as just this.
Why are you so bossy? Stop treating me like a kid! Stop acting like a kid! Well, stop acting like you're perfect! I'm not perfect!
But if we're going to do this, we're going to have to do this together. So if you quit trying to show off, I'll be nicer.
And speaking of the pacing, there are some pretty rushed character development and character threads, let me just say right now. In RWBY, we are literally introduced before the 36-minute mark 8 main characters, each with their own individual motivations, flaws, quirks and qualities that we have to remember and keep a track of. And these main characters are spread into 2 teams of 4, and while I admit there are 8 main characters, there is the central character in Ruby Rose. So you think the team with her in it would have the most fleshed out characters, and the B team would get more time devoted to them in Volume 2. Except no! Ruby and Weiss have a crap ton of fucking character development developing their friend-rival relationship, whereas Ruby and Yang, Ruby's fucking sister? Nope. And don't get me fucking started on Blake, she barely says anything throughout the first half. They got more character development with the B team than I did with half of the A team in this show. Hi, yeah, Ruby, can I check where the fuck are your priorities at? As a result of the ridiculous pacing and nonsense character arcs, the writing suffers. A lot. There are only 2 characters I think who are totally immune from this, and those are Yang and Nora. And that's because Yang is a badass and don't give a shit, and Nora is pretty much just Pinkie Pie Deadpool. She don't care about physics. Also, one of the characters is straight up called Glinda Goodwitch. Ha! It's a Wizard of Oz reference. That's funny, right? I'm just gonna stop right here, guys, and say I fucking hate being critical like this when it's something web-based. I mean, there's a crap ton of effort here. I'm just letting you know, there is a amazing amounts of effort going into this, and it's unbelievable to me. And at the same time, I find that writing is acceptable, and I fucking hate using that word when it's something like this, because it's an amazing piece of work, and I do enjoy it, I do like it. But again, I still have to critique it. I mean, I don't hate using the word acceptable all the time. It's like, I think that the animation in Vampire Knight is acceptable, but when it's something web-based like this, I feel like a grade A arsehole for critiquing it like this. So Volume 1 kicks off with a voiceover that sounds like it could be Celestia's storybook voice that tells of how man harnessed the powers of dust to beat back the forces of the Grimm, before we are thrown headlong into the first action scene where Ruby is caught in the middle of a robbery. However, she shows the robbers that she is a secret scythe-wielding badass and kicks all of her asses as the big bad guy, Roman, manages to slip away. However, some of the teachers at Beacon Academy, totally not the DWME, #Don'tSue, see her in action and decide to have her enroll. And that's pretty much the only major plot point for the entirety of Volume 1. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, this entire volume is a filler plotline. It sets up for later volumes. Yes, there is some kick-ass fight scenes, and yes, we do have some legit moments of character development, and a good third of this volume is taking up with the initial trials of Beacon Academy, but I honestly feel that this volume should have wrapped up at the 57-minute mark. It was perfect left there. And I would have left it there, honestly, if I didn't have to talk about the kimono memes. I'm gonna have to explain this, aren't I? If you're wondering, it's basically the fancy way of saying animal characteristics in an anime character. You know, cat girls, fox boys, that kind of thing. They exist in RWBY, and they use this to push a race metaphor really, really heavily. This is sort of where I think that the backstory reminded me of Full Metal Alchemist. Replace Faunus, which is what the animal people are in this, with Ishvalan, and you get where I'm coming from. I think the only problem is, Full Metal Alchemist does it better. And yeah, in case you're wondering, Blake is a cat girl. You know how I said that Blake didn't really have any character development in the first half of the anime? It all comes through in this second half. It's like Tsubaki from Soul Eater though. It just sort of happens out of nowhere, and at the same time, I didn't really care. Throughout the first half of the anime, this girl was just completely and utterly quiet, and she gave me no reason to give a shit. whereas I was so much more invested with people on the other team like Jean and Nora. John because we had more time devoted to him, and Nora because Nora was fucking amazing. I mean, I feel like the order is a little out of place is all I'm saying. I mean, the middle of the anime has this big test where they're all just put into teams of 4 and then they have to work together. But wouldn't it have made more sense if we had the team test at the end and we had them all put into teams at the beginning? So they had a few weeks or something so they get to know each other, and the character development would have made sense. We could have seen if they worked off each other, they worked together, and we could have built on that. We could have built to a big climax that would have been awesome. Instead, RWBY peaks right at the middle, and the second half just sort of drags. And yes, I know, there is a fight scene between Team RWBY and the White Fang at the end of Volume 1, I am aware. But like before, it doesn't feel as big and as important as the one where all 8 of our main characters fought 2 giant Grimm. It's a battle that feels like character development is a driving force rather than the plot or the action. Yes, it's a plot point, but it's an anti-climax of a plot point. Although I will say this, the second half of the first volume is fucking hilarious.
Forgive me, but you hardly look the part,
says the girl wearing a dress.
It's a combat skirt. Yeah.
Despite how fucking hilarious I found the second half though, it doesn't save it from dragging out a lot. The second half is all typical high school teen drama filler plotline you could expect in an anime like this. Not a badass school teaching you how to wield weapons of mass destruction. So in the end, what do I actually think of RWBY? Okay, the first volume isn't fantastic, I'm gonna say that straight away. But at the same time, I'm invested, okay? It's done enough to hook its claws into my brain. The characters, for little I've seen of all of them, are charming enough that I feel invested in some of their relationships with each other, and I'm willing to see how some of the others grow. There are however some glaring problems, like the pacing issues, some of the dialogue choices, the bare bones plot threads, and Jesus Christ, turn down the brightness on Weiss, please! RWBY is... It's got a fantastic amount of effort put into it, guys, and if it was just maybe a little of the dialogue and a few animation quirks, I seriously wouldn't give a shit. Everything has a few little quirks and niggles that make it less than perfect, but I wouldn't have given a shit if that was ill. But in my opinion, we have a very backwards plotline and character threads that just feel so rushed that the volume wanted to get itself over and done with. It's like they didn't want to put too much effort into establishing this world and they wanted to get onto the adventure side of things in the second volume. That's what it felt like to me. In my opinion, RWBY is above average, but it gets a dark rating of 67.
I'm not perfect.
Not yet.
With that, I guess, I think it's time we wrapped up the first review of AniMonth. If you have a suggestion for a review, I have everything planned out for March, so if you have a suggestion for a review of a later date, please leave it in the comment section below. And same goes if you have a suggestion for a moment of consideration, especially for AniMonth. I'd like to hear what you guys want to talk about on that show. But as always, I've been Darkest101. You have been watching AniMonth on Darkest101 Reviews. Thanks for watching. Good night, YouTube.